philosophical standpoint, and put with this together a little bit of yoga and other things in me. I have find interest in this topic, and hence I'm here. So thank you for this opportunity, and I'll try to just share my little experiences on what free will is, going through different quadrants. And from a cultural standpoint, our culture has always probably said that a man is made by his belief. As he believes, so he is. And so the immediate thing which comes into, three words comes into this context is then fate, karma, and predestination. Then what are these three things? And this is the concept of the Hinduism. And I think free will has been our culture. Free will has been our concept. I think the last 2 hours has been free will. We are even free to discuss about our culture. We are free to discuss about our religion. And not in many religions they do that. So as a culture, we are free will. So what free will has done, and sometimes the karma was a result or a byproduct of our free will in the past. But what we now do now, what we act now as a free will determine our future. So I think acting in the present, sometimes we may be confused that either we are in a karma or a predestiny. So the point is, everything is not predestined. The present state I am in is, I think, in my absolute consciousness, and this will determine my future. Maybe I am going through some of the things which I have done in the past. So a man takes complete responsibility for his actions. And I think that is the pure concept of free will. If something does not happen according to my desire, then I say it's a godly act. And if something happens according to the way I have wished, then I say it's my will. So I think it's always been free will, and for which we take the responsibility of our actions. If we are free enough to take it, yes, I think we are free will. And that's pretty much in alignment with our culture and the concept of Vedas, right? There is this prapta karma and there is this agamya karma. So prapta karma, we cannot do anything about it. We just need to go through it. It has been done in the past. I think we just experience it. We have to accept it. It's only because of our actions, our thoughts, and whatever it has been. And one thing we can do is about the agamya karma, what can happen to me. I think that has been probably given as a free will to me. So if my thoughts, my actions, my consciousness is aligned towards that thought, all our Vedas say that we believe in our intelligence where we can rewrite the destiny. Maybe we can at least travel in that direction. So that is the free will. And then why would have every human be created with a predestiny? No, actually there is a portion of karma and there is a portion of free will, is what found from the Veda standpoint. We had amazing examples in the past and from our own history where free will was at its peak. And how could one Siddha can find about almost like so many medicines in languages. And the theory goes that he lived for almost more than 1,000 years. Looks like it's impractical, but looks like life was connected at its free will. So he is like probably the god of medicine, maybe to find it, and that's the Agastya sage. And there is a saying from Tirukural, எண்ணியவர் எண்ணியபடியே செயல் ஆற்றுவதில் உறுதியுடையவராக இருக்க பெற்றால் அவர் எண்ணியவற்றை எண்ணியவாறே அடைவார். So the emphasis of thought, the emphasis of free will, the emphasis of consciousness, I think we pretty much have it in our roots. And there are many examples. We know the 18 Siddhas, we know the Tirukural, Vallalar, and all this tradition, I think they will talk about how powerful humans can be, how powerful their thoughts can be. And there was union with the God. And I think that's what we see from this tremendous work. And this was beautiful. And the whole lecture of Vivekananda in terms of Hinduism, he said we never satisfy. That's what Hinduism is. We never satisfy. We have the rights. We cultivate the power of analysis and abstraction. And he was the one to go pretty openly and talk about Hinduism from all its dimensions. We said we worship 1 million gods. We do so many rituals. because that's the free will. We never say, do this. We never say, do this. You have to eat this many times. We have to do this. We have the free will, right? We do so many things in the form of rituals. We do so many things in the form of gods, but we never debate them. We are still in the continuous process of learning, and this is what the best thing he has told about Hinduism when he was talking from a cultural standpoint. And we see this in so many examples when we talk about Hinduism as a philosophy, but without getting into the religious aspects, and how free will, if we don't ridicule that, and I see people walk on the fire. I've seen people, 2,000 people walking on the fire pretty closely. And I was very closely observing. One point of it could be a rationalism point of view, why so much of bhakti in it. Another point is saying, where is the free will for this guy to perform this act, right? So these are my questions. I've seen someone pierce right through the cheeks with 0 drops of blood. And this could be one way, has been ridiculed by our own films. But another way, I think I've seen the closest observation I've got is fire is a form of element. And the human is in union with the fire, maybe for that milliseconds or microseconds. The power he can connect with the consciousness for that minute. And I was telling Sir that there is a PhD, a guy who has just performed of how people walk on the fire. And he has given all the dimensions of the scientific angle, the philosophical angle, the free will angle of how people walk in the fire. And so Hinduism has its own evolutions. I think we will always be on a free will to learn more. I think our quest is also more. I think it all started with Swami Vivekananda. And a little bit to the Western world of free will, I just picked 2 examples. So Edison was taken as a slow learner in a school, and so was Einstein, was also a hunch and things like that. So they never believed what they had. They always had the free will to connect it to whatever purpose. I think so Edison went on to have about 1,000 patents in his lifetime. And there was no predestiny. I think probably there was, either it was predestiny or was a thought process. We never know. But that's the power of free will. And we have, numerous examples of this from a Western standpoint. And this is the latest and the greatest. I just picked one example of all which happens in the information technology sector. And it's the evolution from the Homo sapiens all the way to the Facebook. So I just liked this diagram and I thought I'll present it here. So one person wants to find an alumni, then there is a Facebook. One person wants to share a video, then we had this YouTube. And everyone wants to be connected, then we have this LinkedIn concept. The free will, I think this has been explored beautifully by the Western world. It may sound as a materialistic dimension, but they went to the depth of it. And today all of us are connected at every point, at any point. I think it's because of the human's free will to connect freely and also make it available to everyone. So we all have the advantages of this because someone had the free will to think about it, to perceive it, and maybe to conceptualize this. And this is our company, a few words. In 10th Planet, it's an open source company, meaning which we take free software and then we customize it for customers. It was a small dream to start a company and then do this. We start doing yoga as part of the company, right? And we have grown in this angle. All this were like just some belief system which made us grow. And we have one amazing person in the company, I think, who was physically challenged. And on top of it, he lost both his hearing capacity in an accident. So already physical challenged, and then he lost his hearing capacity also. And I would say he is probably one of the best business intelligent, technological person available in the whole city. So that's his free will. He climbed 6 stairs when there is no power. All the people used to be like watching at him, and we see this. And there was another example when we go through this. There was a 73-year-old woman, Vasudha, who did her PhD in Vaishnavism at the age of 73. So she was so depressed after losing her husband at an age, and it was always a dream for her to pursue a PhD. And then Madras University, I think they granted a special permission to her. She did her PhD and got the degree from the CM of Tamil Nadu. So the small things I learned from this 10th planet has been free will when we exercise it in a right way, when we exercise it for the good of people and for a social cause as well. And slowly, when I questioned this thought, then am I acting the right way? What is free will? Everything which I do is the right thing or wrong thing? Then I think there is a little bit of conscious or a philosophical angle to it. Then I probably connect with something called as consciousness, because I don't know if my free will produce a right result or a wrong result. But that doesn't mean I cannot exist on free will. So a little bit of a quote from Vedatri Maharishi, like ஒரு செயல் தற்காலத்திலேயோ பிற்காலத்திலேயோ தன் உடலுக்கோ தன் மனத்திற்கோ தன் சமுதாயத்திற்கோ தீங்கு விளைவிக்க முடியாதெனில் நம்மளுடைய எண்ணம் வந்து கான்ஷியஸோட கனெக்ட் ஆகுது. We don't hurt, we don't connect, we are absolutely acting on a free will. I think then we go from the zone of free will to consciousness. Then my actions are true. Then my thought is true. So then we get a little bit of a spiritual quotient here. So been practicing yoga for the last 4 years, and as many of the experiences the doctors shared, definitely I think meditation gets to a point where my thoughts are clarified, my actions are clarified. And this is, then I question, okay, then am I operating? Am I doing things? Am I doing things which won't hurt others? Am I doing things which is good for me? Have I cleansed myself enough? I think meditation is one tool probably which gets to this part. So have we get to this level, consciousness level? So I don't know if my free will is connected with the thy will. So there is no answer to philosophy without spirituality. And we can say so many things about philosophically, but deep inside, if I am clean, if my thoughts are clean, if I am completely aware of myself, then I can say I'm in free will. I'm in free will, and whatever I do will have a beautiful effect on the world. So to attain that level, I think we need a spiritual quotient. And for that spiritual quotient, I think yoga has been a wonderful tool to, when your mind is operating on a low frequency, that's what I found out. When our mind is operating on a low frequency, we do admit who we are. We do accept all the things we have done, and we do admit that there is a free will for which we can get better things done. And this is my little experience on philosophy from a free will standpoint. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I thank both the speakers for putting out their views. Actually, what I thought about it was free will is something where you have a choice and you need to decide on the choice and how you go about choosing that. Now, my understanding of what this topic was going to be, how am I going to decide a particular thing? I'll come to examples. Is it based on what my brain thinks and says, which was probably Madam's topic? No, it is not all that. It is part of what she said, all predetermined, which is what Mr. Krishnamurthy was going to say. Now, in essential, as I understand free will, are all our actions, decisions, based on what is already predetermined or not. This is the basic difference, where so-called free will, as it was conceptualized, as I think, for this debate, whether it is all predetermined or not, and we do it on our own, coming from our own brain. That's why I said it's a very difficult question to answer, and that is why it is debated. Even science is unable to prove one way or the other whether it's all predetermined or not. To argue for, even to say it is the brain, yes, as we said earlier when we talked about mind and the brain, and Madam talked about mind also. See, whether it is all already ingrained in us, this is how we have to go. It's all pre-programmed or predetermined, and correspondingly those parts of the brain which are supposed to do that action or execute that action does it. Now, the question is all our action based on what has been predetermined? For example, let's take, say, from the time we are born, we go to a school. Which school we go, obviously not under our control. Most often at that time, it's what the parents decide. You might conclude obviously it's not my free will, but which school I go to, it's because my parents' decision. Is that predetermined? Where do we come in that? Can't say. Later, at a later age, we choose a course, which course to go. Partly we are involved with that. Partly probably the parents are involved. And what is chosen, nowadays at least, mostly it is the person, the student or the boy or the girl who decides on which course to decide, which course to go. And now, is that the right option which they have chosen? Is it only free will? Or that whatever they choose, has it been already predetermined for them? The same thing will go for the job also. See, to some extent, this is where, for those who believe, or even if they don't believe, the time comes into play, the time of birth, the horoscopes, all that comes into play. It could be based on that, some calculations could be made, and it could be determined what a person is likely to be and in which profession he is likely to succeed, and so on. So that is one. Same thing applies to certain other aspects like jobs, where you have a problem and you need to choose. Sometimes you throw lots before the God and say, which one am I to choose, and leave it to him to choose. We believe that he chooses. Okay, so are these all free wills? These are day-to-day events. But on the other side, let me go to another aspect which Mr. Krishnamurthy highlighted, the moral of what we do, right or wrong. If it is free will, obviously everybody has to do the right thing. Why should anybody do a wrong thing? You talked about consciousness. I'm not sure whether it's consciousness or conscience. One has to go by conscience, but several times we don't listen to our conscience. We know that our action, what we are doing is wrong, but yet we do it. Now, what governs that? Is it free will? Okay, saying that right or wrong is up to free will, we know that it could change our life itself. Let's take a thief or whatever sort of, I don't want to mention other professions or not professions, way of living. Now, who opted for that? They opted for it. But why should they opt for it? So in that situation, obviously it's ingrained, and that is where I have to come to what Madam said. For those who believe, or if they don't believe, give some other term, karma. What decides? You pointed out the actions today causing karma. There is other way also. It is the karma of, again, for those who believe in all this, we basically come back again to issues which there may be people who do not believe into it. But these are the things which lays the substrate for those beliefs. So if there had been karma, what you are doing today, if I'm a thief or I'm a murderer or I'm somebody else, what has caused that? What I did in the previous life. That has resulted in my doing these actions. So there is certainly what Madam said, karma. That's why ultimately she said she believes in that karma and left it. What is my free will? Is it governed by my karmas? Is it governed by what has been predetermined? Ultimately, that is what it has to be. These are for major issues. But for smaller issues, okay, what shirt do I wear today? What pant? Shall I go by an auto or shall I go by a bus? Those are things probably which are could be considered as free will. So there is I mean, I'm just throwing open what I think. There is something at the macro level, there is something probably at the micro level, one could say that. A macro level is probably governed, mostly predetermined, it is there already. And at the micro level, how you do about that, whatever you intend to do that macro level, maybe at that level, even there is some predetermined thing. One can always argue it is already predetermined that you come today by bus or you go today by car. That, one could always argue that, one cannot counter it. But probably at that level there is some percentage of things which we could probably attribute it to free will. I think this is the essence of the debate. And as I said, these are things which can never be concluded as to what it is, but probably it lays down the basis. It just opens to gives others views and opens so much that we come to know about, for example, what Madam said, determinism, liberatism, compatibility, incompatibility. We wouldn't have otherwise come to know these terms even without such talks. So yes, it opens up dimensions, and probably this is the way a debate should be. And so you get more information and then form our own conclusions, which also probably is governed by what is predetermined. But at the same time, I think we will have to go ahead with discussion from the floor, what each one thinks about free will and what they have to contribute, and probably ask questions about free will. About the floor, I just had to talk about this because what free will is essentially, I wanted to highlight that what is free will and how do we go about it.
You are kind of blinded from it, and then you're probably made to believe that whatever you're doing is, by your own free will.
Some of these, the outcomes, and others also with regards to free will, as Mr. Krishnamurthy pointed out, see, we all have our culture. We all have certain beliefs. So that to a great extent governs what we talk, what we think about these matters. For example, when you asked about outcomes of what we do, one would probably have to accept whatever the outcome is. It depends. See, if you say that this is how it has to happen, then that is how it has to happen. That's why I said we have to have our culture, our beliefs, karmas. It all depends a lot on what one is probably made of or think, or their approach, based on which one would have to take the outcome. And it might be a philosophical outcome that come what may, this is what I am destined to, I can take it. But at the same time, we also say fate can be overcome by brain function or vidhi madiyal vellalam. Appo, what is it that? Is it that we are saying that what is predetermined already has been, can be changed? One can also argue that, no, that is how it was meant. You are supposed to change it, that was also ingrained. So these are difficult things to answer. I mean, I am not a master at it. Don't ask answers from me. You give your views and what you think out of it.
That, like I tried to say in the end, there is a little bit of all three. You see, there is a considerable determinism through genetics and through culture and nature, nurture, the whole scenario. And as I showed in the few basic studies that are being done, that there is an unconscious preparation for majority of what we manifest.